After a brief recess, the innocent till proven guilty court is back in session for the case of Action 52. If you haven't seen part 1 where I cover the first 31 games on the card, click the annotation to watch that first. For everyone else, let's hop back into the action with... Shooting Gallery is basically just Jupiter Scope, except that we control a dude with a rifle instead of a ship. It's the same basic concept though. The shooter is confined to the bottom and can only move left or right as the enemy ducks, bunnies, and cats advance towards him. Just press A over and over again to fire the gun while avoiding the enemies, and that's all there is to do. I don't feel much of anything either way for Shooting Gallery. It's just sort of there. Yeah. Next! Lollipop, singular or plural, is one of the platformers that I enjoy the most. For starters, Lollipop takes after Haunted Hill Halls in that the jumping is a vast improvement. That's not to say that it's perfect, since I still got temporarily stuck in a few spots, and our Lollipop wielder can become a nasty looking mid-air ink blot if he falls from too big of a height. Regardless, I enjoyed this one overall. Yes, it gets a bit annoying that every time the jump button is pressed an irksome sound is made, but the appeal of Lollipop for me lies in the fact that I like to pretend that the hero is an American gladiator touting a joust stick. Maybe I'm just a wacko, but that sets Lollipop a mark above the rest as far as I'm concerned. Evil Empire just hurts my eyes to look at. I know the programmers had to deal with the limitations of the cartridge format, but this is just ridiculous. Everything is microscopic and there's a severe lack of detail. I can't tell what I'm playing as or what anything else is. The background reminds me of Agrabah from Aladdin, so I guess those rope-looking vehicles the enemies are riding are magic carpets, but that's just a huge stretch of the imagination. The task at hand is to kill all of the baddies, but that's incredibly hard to do when the only way to access them is to climb the ladders that they're right above. Evil Empire might be passable if it was for the Atari 2600, but this was on an NES release in 1991. This is the epitome of poor design, and hopefully the next one makes up for it. This is definitely better than Evil Empire, but that's not saying much. Sombreros is a top-down shooter, but one that takes place in a cityscape. In it, we take the role of the man wearing the titular hat. Said sombrero wearer has to avoid cars in the first level while also taking out the competition. There's only room enough in this town for one sombrero, and I don't take kindly to others encroaching on my hat turf. The setting transitions to the desert for stage 2, but the objective remains the same. What also remains the same is the music, and it's one of the most annoying tunes I've ever heard in a video game. The sombrero tune makes Back to the Future sound like a Tim Fallon composition. In spite of the ear-punishing soundtrack, Sombreros gets a pass from me. It was 1991, so of course there had to be an Operation Desert Storm tie-in. Storm Over the Desert is very basic, but kind of fun. We hop aboard a tank, and we have to eliminate Saddam Hussein and the other enemies to freedom and the American way of life. A fires, B does nothing, yada yada yada, tanks are cool. Mashman is almost identical to Fuzz Power. Both share a hero with very large feet, which are again used to crush enemies. In Mashman's case, I found it was much less of a hassle to just jump over the foes and continue on my way. In fact, that would be my advice for anyone who wants to play this, since pretty much everything harms Mashman, even those little triangles. Once again, getting past the third stage loops back around to the first, so there's not much to Mashman, but it's slightly amusing. They Came is a top-down shooter, but it's slightly different in that it's one static screen like Jupiter Scope, but the ship can maneuver freely around the area. There's not much else I can say about it other than the second segment is a nightmare. It's pretty much one big hazard. The safe sections are very slim in comparison to the kill zones. Again, like Spreadfire, I can best describe it as meh. Believe it or not, this is actually my favorite from Action 52. It's a shooter, so it's not like there isn't a bazillion of those contained within this clear cart, but this one is just leaps and bounds beyond the rest. I guess it helps that it reminds me of Abadox, a Milton Bradley published gem that I really enjoy. There's only one thing that I don't like about Laser League. The music, if you can call it that. I have absolutely no clue what the developers were going for here. Maybe they were trying to simulate the void of space? I don't know. All I do know is that the constant drone really got on my nerves. Regardless, Laser League is aces in my book. Billy Bob is a poor man's Prince of Persia. It has the same cinematic platforming style as that series, but since it lacks Pop's responsive controls, Billy Bob is a total disaster. Debris is constantly dropping from the ceiling, and they're incredibly hard to avoid. Making it past all of that to the second area resulted in what might as well be considered a dead end. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out how to reach the middle platform, so that's as far as I was able to get. I'm assuming that Billy Bob will eventually encounter actual human enemies at some point since he has a gun, but I don't think anyone was able to get that far to fight them. Billy Bob is an awesome title, but everything after the menu is a total letdown. If The Amazing Spider-Man didn't fill your desire for wall-climbing action, then look no further than City of Doom. Our character scales a city building just like the webhead, and he has to avoid bowling balls and flying pests. Just find the best spot, press A to toss whatever the red substance the dude's holding, and that'll lead to the boss fight. I didn't get any further than this, but that didn't really bother me, especially since I still have 11 more to cover. City of Doom may be a Spider-Man wannabe, but it's pretty fun for what it is. Bits and Pieces is a monster-themed platformer, so that alone makes it pretty cool. The controllable character is a Frankenstein's monster, and just like Mashman, his only attack is a stomp. There's not much to Bits and Pieces really, just avoid the monsters for 4 rounds and then it'll loop back around again. Very simple, but I kinda like the concept. Beeps and Blips is pretty much exactly the same as They Came. It even uses the same music. Again, it's a top-down fixed shooter with free roaming controls. The difficulty spikes quite a bit on the third section as the foes swoop in rather aggressively, and that, combined with the stage hazards, did me in quickly. That's all I have to say about it. Manchester is just annoying. Almost all of the platformers involve some kind of irritating noise when the character jumps, but this is the worst. Every time the protagonist leaps into the air, a little jingle plays, which overshadows the actual soundtrack like an intercom announcement in a department store. As for the platforming itself, it's average in quality. Well, average as far as this cart goes. I found a glitch where the character can float underneath the floor, escaping all harm. I died on my last life when I unexpectedly reached the boss, but I was done with it anyway, so it didn't bother me. If I had to sum up my feelings on Manchester, it would be this. To paraphrase a certain angry YouTuber, Active Enterprises, what were you thinking? Boss is totally boss! Well, not really. Boss is a side-scroller set in what I would classify as the real City of Doom. There are dudes dropping bombs out of almost every building, and the patterns that they drop them in vary from one encounter to the next. The animation is quite impressive for an unlicensed multi-cart, but nice visuals don't make for an enjoyable presentation, and Boss is lacking in that department. Dead Ant is just shooting range, but with insects. Our ant has to exterminate its brethren before moving on to the next part. The insects act more aggressively than the targets in shooting range, and since the ant can only move left to right, it's easy to get trapped and killed. I dig Dead Ant's soundtrack. It has an almost depressing tone to it, but I can't get enough of it. Repetitive as it is, I really enjoy it, which is more than I could say for Dead Ant itself. Hambo's Adventures is a disappointment. Just like Illuminator and Chill Out before it, the goal is to simply climb the ladders to get to the top tier to make it to the goal. What separates Hambo from the rest is that there's only one life. Unless a 1-up pops up, one hit will result in a game over. In spite of this, I was able to make it to stage 4, so hooray for me! With a name like Hambo, this had so much potential, but alas, it couldn't live up to that epic name. Oh well, at least the death animations are pretty funny. This one is downright bizarre. Where do I even begin? For starters, the star of Time Warp Tickers is a hand that moves around by itself. This alone is incredibly odd, but on top of that, every time an enemy is killed, the word time appears in its place. This even happens when the hand bites it. So freaking weird! Lunacy aside, Time Warp Tickers is just alright. The craziness and the rockabilly music certainly help make it stick out from the crowd. The other unplayable title on the Rev A version, Jigsaw, is very elementary both in tone and design. It suffers from the same jumping flaws as most of Action 52's platformers, and the music and motif is very kid-friendly. Jigsaw features a construction worker that is attacked by his tools, which have come to life somehow. Nothing too imaginative there, especially in comparison to Time Warp Tickers, but it's alright. Ninja Gaiden, this is not. Ninja Assault plays a lot like a more free-roaming version of slashers. The animation is a lot better, especially in regards to the ninja's flips, and the fights are much more entertaining. No matter which foe the ninja faces off against, whether it's one of his peers or animals such as dogs and birds, they all make the same human moan of pain when hit. It's hilarious and I love it! Ninja Assault is another of the highlights and a personal favorite of mine. Yet another platformer, and this is one of the weakest. I'm assuming that the dude with the blonde spiked hair and sunglasses is Robbie, and the robots? Well, they're nothing to write home about. At least on the first part, which can be beaten by simply running and shooting straight ahead without any strategy whatsoever. The second segment gets a bit trickier due to poor pit and wall gun placement. Poor is definitely a good word choice to describe Robbie and the robots. Not even the soundtrack can save it, because there is no soundtrack. Well, on the plus side, at least we're almost done. That's right, it's finally time for the main event. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you the Cheetah Man! Oh yeah, baby, this is my jam! And what's this? A story? With cutscenes? This is on Action 52? Yes, indeed. The Cheetah Men were designed to be the breakout stars from Active Enterprise. There were plans to turn them into a merchandising bonanza, but once the cart flopped, those dreams came crashing to the ground. The story is almost on a kindergarten scale, but at least there is a plot. The action game master of the original title gets sucked into the TV Captain N style. Upon regaining his bearings, the action game master comes into contact with the Cheetah Men! He tells them of his story, the Cheetah Men offer to fight for him, and they head off on their journey. We take control of Ares for the initial portion, and his wooden clubs and martial arts skills are supposed to be of great value to us. Well, I don't see any kind of martial arts skill, and as far as his wooden club prowess, it's pathetic. It's enough to cause the bad guys to explode into little balls though, so I guess he must be doing something right. Cheetah Men is obviously a side-scrolling platformer, a genre that's mostly been a recipe for disaster up to now, but it's very playable and quite enjoyable in spite of this. If it wasn't for the fact that A attacks and B jumps, I would say that this could be mistaken for a licensed platformer. Cheetah Men isn't without its flaws though. Believe me, it has plenty of them. The jumping is still pretty bad, but it's a bit more polished in comparison to the other platformers. There are large pits on the ground that can be surprisingly hard to get around, and the various foes, a lot of which are recycled from earlier in the cart, can be a real pain. The majority of the Cheetah Men have close range attacks, so the chance of our heroes taking damage is just as likely as the baddies being dispatched. The first two levels aren't all that bad, especially once you get used to the controls. The boss at the end of the second Ares segment can be a bit problematic, especially since it keeps leaping around like a madman. There's no life bar for the boss, so the only way to tell if he's taken damage is the guttural growl that every enemy makes when hit. After this, Hercules, the big brawler of the Cheetah Men, takes over, and the difficulty increases simply due to the fact that he's a much bigger sprite than Ares. It's so much harder to avoid enemies and projectiles due to his hulking frame, and in the half hour I spent with Cheetah Men, this is as far as I got. Cheetah Men may be a blatant attempt to cash in on the Battletoads and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles craze of the early 90s, but in spite of its many flaws, I enjoyed it a lot. It's a total breath of fresh air in comparison to the rest of the subpar side-scrollers discussed previously, and the music always gets me pumped. It's without a doubt the best side-scroller that Action 52 has to offer. The music, the level design, the sprites, all of it is top-notch by Action 52 standards, meaning that it's crap in comparison to a Mario or Mega Man, but it's way better than some of its unlicensed kin like Raid 2020. Simply put, the Cheetah Men rock! With that, I've finally covered all that Action 52 has to offer. It has its highs and its lows, and it definitely has more lows than highs, but is it really the stain on the NES library that it's made out to be? Let's find out in the breakdown! I'll try to keep this brief. Action 52 is nearly broken. The jumping mechanics are largely awful, the programming, especially in eyesores like Evil Empire and Crazy Shuffle, is abysmal, and there were so many times during my capture session when the cart would glitch out or crash entirely, requiring a reset. I love platformers and shooters, but what Action 52 considers to be worthy entries in those genres is an insult to the classics that define them. Action 52 is a curse on gaming, and playing it for an extended amount of time takes a toll on one's mental well-being. Stay away from it. Stay far away from it. Well, it has a lot of bang for the buck. 52 games in one cart. That's something that few developers attempted, and they're all playable to boot. Well, at least on the Rev B version. With that many games, there's plenty here for platformer and shooter fans to enjoy. Well, sort of. I mean, Life Force and Ninja Gaiden can be picked up for a fraction of the price, and both of them have much more to offer than any of these 52. I guess I'm not doing very well at trying to defend this, am I? Maybe it's just indefensible. I mean, it does have some good tunes, and some of the games are a little enjoyable, but is this anywhere near being good? I guess it isn't. I've got nothing more to add on this one. I think the decision is pretty clear, but I'll go forward with the formalities anyway. In the case of Action 52, I ruled that the verdict is guilty. Yes, what the critics have claimed is absolutely true. Action 52 is the epitome of a bad game. With that said though, there are aspects of it that I like, and I enjoy playing it for what it is, for a little while. Call me a glutton for punishment, but I honestly feel that the majority of the shooters are decent, and even a few of the platformers are somewhat passable, but even I'll admit that it's mediocre by and large. I really dig the Cheetah Man, but even it's filled with flaws. That tune sure does kick ass though. Hit it! Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to come back on the 22nd for the next Cygnus Historia video, but until then, you can watch these videos on the screen. In the upper left-hand corner, you got the Typing of the Dead episode of Cygnus Historia Retro Reviews. It was a lot of fun to make, just an awesome game, just good times. I think you'll like it. I hope you like it. Now, on the upper right-hand corner, you got something a little different. It is LJN Defender related, though, but it's the promo that I did for the Beat This Game Today promo. Beat This Game Today, Back to the Future, that Jason of R4X Jason did. So you should check that out. It's like a Let's Play-ish type thing, but it's cool. It's fun. Now, on the bottom left-hand corner, you got, because I mentioned this in part 1 of the Action 52 video, I figured I might as well link the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde episode of Innocent Until Proven Guilty. The previous the most infamous episode in the series so far, besides Action 52. So if you haven't seen that, I think you'll enjoy that. And as always, for anybody who's new to the channel, if you like what you saw, click that red box right there to subscribe to the channel, and you'll be kept up to date with everything that goes on with me in the future, all my new videos. So like I said before, come back on the 22nd for the next Cygnus Historia video, but until then, take care everyone, bye bye!